the elect lady reached out to me in Messenger and asked if I could set aside some time to be here with you. And I kept looking at it and trying to figure out how could I get here to be with my friends. And then something came up where I saw I had to do a series of meetings in the northeastern part of North Carolina. And I thought, well, that is so cool, because what will happen is I can drive to that part of the state and then just make an hour on up here and be with you guys. And so the Lord worked that out. It took us a year, but we got it. You know? We got it. Amen. So happy about that. I want to recognize another fine gentleman that is with me today. I don't get to do many road trips these days. Most of the time I'm in the air. I was joking with somebody the other day. I flew to somewhere in the States. I've been flying to various cities in the U.S. over the last 3 months. And the first one, I flew to Norfolk at the beginning of this year, mid this year. And I flew in and they came on the speaker and they said, after 45 minutes, they said, "You are landing." And I sat up and I almost said it out loud, "You lying." And the reason why is because most of the time when I fly these days, my flights are 20 hours, 25 hours, 19 hours. And so I'm not used to a 45-minute flight. And I was landing and I thought, they lied, they just playing with me. I can't do that. But I don't get to do many road trips. I generally don't drive after 2 hours. But this has turned out to be 6 hours, and I thought, no need to try and do that by myself. And so I was able to ask this incredible gentleman here to join me, and he has been such a faithful servant of the Lord and a great help to me over the last 2 days. Minister Jeremy Calzin is in. Amen. So glad to have him with us. Amen. God bless you, sir. He's a prince of a gentleman, and he is a Bible teacher in his own right. Jeremy will open the scripture and he'll take you places. Has a tremendous anointing to teach the Word of God, and by career he's an engineer, and God has just done some great things for him. You know, I have got to be special when the Lord puts me with people who have been on the Oprah show.
All right now, Jeremy.
Somebody say, "Go Jeremy!" Yeah. Now, so you know that the Lord must love me. I mean, somebody been on the Oprah show, and then he's driving my Honda. Yeah, man. So I'm pretty okay today. I'm feeling really good about that. But certainly thank God for him and the anointing that is on his life. Again, as I was saying before I open the word of the Lord, and I'm going to spend some time with you. I'm going to labor with you in the word this morning. How do you need a word from the Lord?
Amen.
I believe the Lord wants to talk to you. But before we go into the word, I just want to ask you to stay in this vein. You have something that the Lord can use. If I walk into a house and I see multi-generation, then I'm excited. Because it speaks to that which has been, that which is, and that which is coming.
Amen. That was it.
And there is a potential here that God can use just because of what is in this room. Amen. By virtue of presence and persons. And so I'm going to ask you to hold on to that and cherish that and make something good of it. It is significant what you're doing. And never ever, listen to me before I teach here in just a moment. Never ever undervalue or underestimate what you have.
Amen.
I'm trying to help pastors and leaders all around the world understand, especially in America, that the churches that are making the greatest impact right now are not medium-sized nor mega. And you need to understand that. Only 5% of the churches in America are mega churches. Only 5%. And it just seems as though they have the platform, so it seems as though they are doing most of the work. But what we know statistically is that the churches that are making the greatest impact in communities and in lives now are churches in the margin of 65 to 70%. Now, here's what you need to learn. You want to know something about those churches? Those churches make up the small churches in America. They start at about 17 people and they go up to about 75 people. 70% of the churches in America. And they're making the biggest impacts in the communities. Big churches have the funds, but you guys have no, smaller churches, not you, but many smaller churches have no funds. But they're the ones that's feeding the hungry.
Did it yesterday.
See, that I'm talking about caring for people in the community, making a difference in people's lives. And so do not underestimate what you have here and the value of it and how God's put that anointing on your bishop and on your elect lady to lead you in the way that he's leading you.
Amen.
And with that, the Lord is very, very, very pleased. So, Father, we thank you now for your presence.
Yes.
We thank you for your anointing. Yes. We thank you for what we feel in this room.
Yes.
We thank you that already you have knitted our hearts together.
Yes.
And we believe by the Spirit that there is a voice. It is not the voice of Walter. It is the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And I would ask that you will cause that voice to somehow be lifted up above the voice of Walter.
Yes.
And I pray that through your voice, we will hear you. Touch our ears that we can hear.
Yes.
Touch our hearts that we can be receptive.
Yes.
Speak a word that will change us, Lord.
Speak.
We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Everybody that's in agreement with that said amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, I'm going to use my 6 hours wisely, so I hope you've used the bathroom. And I'm going to do this as best as I can. I just hear somebody say the devil is a lie. I'm up out of here. But I want you to join me this morning in Galatians chapter number 6. There's a verse tucked away in this particular book that probably for most of us would be a very, very familiar verse. And it's what I felt the Lord speak in my heart as I was preparing on last night. And by the way, where's Monica? Where's Monica?
Oh,
She's with the kids.
that's crazy because
Monica Williams. I just wanted to thank her. You don't have to get her. But I just wanted to thank her for her very fine work. Monica has been great as serving as the administrator on behalf of Bishop and on behalf of elect lady, and she has done an outstanding job. Monica, I'm just recognizing. Let's give her a hand. Let's give Monica a hand. She has done it up big, man. She has stayed in touch with me on behalf of Bishop and elect lady. Made sure that our accommodations were good, and you guys set us up really nice. And make sure that we didn't need anything. Jeremy and I got to the hotel, and I felt like Will Smith, you know. Found my way there. And we walked up, man, and then she walks up with these gift bags, and we got chips and water and the keys in it. And, you know, we really felt big time big because we didn't even have to stop by the front desk. And Jeremy got out the car, and he walked in with his head up like he was in court.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was like, man, this is so cool. And all of that was Monica.
Yeah.
She sat there and did all that. So put your hands together for Monica. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, girl. Thank you so much. Love you, girl. Hey, I haven't even started preaching yet, and you already left. What's up? No, I'm messing with you. You hear what I said? Monica, I said I haven't even started preaching yet, and you already left out the room. Sure do make a brother feel good, boy. All right, so the hospitality here has been incredible. You guys have really taken care of us, and we just thank you for that from start to finish. It's been above and beyond anything that Jeremy and I could have expected. So thank you for it, and we love you for what you have done. Galatians chapter number 6, there is a very familiar verse for most of us that is found in verse number 9. And I want to read it. I just want to read it to you, and then I'm going to talk to you for a few moments. And then after I share with you out of the heart of the Father, if there's some time left, Bishop has given me freedom. I'd like to pray for some of you, especially because this is your 19th year. All right, so Galatians chapter 6, verse number 9. Would you stand with me real quickly as I read this verse? I'm going to read it out loud as you read it silently. I'm actually reading from the New King James version of the Bible. So I'm going to read this single verse, Galatians chapter 6, verse number 9. And let us not grow weary while doing good. For in due season, everybody shout due season. Due season. In due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. The old King James Version says we shall reap if we faint not. And so with that verse this morning, I want to lift this thought in your hearing Here it is. Don't worry about a thing.
All right.
Look at somebody and say, don't worry about a thing.
Don't worry about nothing.
Now, I want you to look at them the second time and say, no, don't worry about nothing. Not a thing. And there you go. Amen. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. That's kind of sort of what I want to talk about this morning. And part of the reason why I felt the Lord take me this direction is because I think most of us, regardless of where we are in our station in life right now, if we were to have a real honest moment, we would admit that at times when we shouldn't, we find ourselves doing things that we know that are not healthy for us.
Amen.
We don't want to do it, but we end up there. We don't want to say it, but we say it anyway. We don't want to get involved or engaged in that particular thing, but somehow we find ourselves there anyway. Has that ever happened to anybody here? You're up into something is going on, you didn't want that to be the case, and then after it happens, you feel a certain way about it. And, it's not good, and just when you think you got that thing beat, it happens to you again. And then somebody comes along and they say this. They say, well, you know what? You got the victory and maybe you are going to be all right. Don't do that again. You'll be okay. And you try not to go there again because you know that it's not healthy. And you make it maybe a week. Some of you a month. Others of you might make it a whole 2 months. Some of you may make it a half a year. And then bam, it hits you again. Now here's something that I know about every person in this room, although I do not know your names. I know that one of those issues that has attacked every one of us is something called worrying. And it's something that everybody in this room, if I were to sit down and talk with you personally, every one of you in this room would say, you know what, I know I ought not do that. I know it's not good. I know there's no benefits in it. But if you have found yourself stuck at some point in a zone of worrying about something, wave at me. The rest of y'all are a bunch of liars. Because, hey, listen, the truth of the matter is whether it's something big or something small, everybody in this room has worried about something. Some of you right now, you are worrying about finances. Some of you are worrying about education. Some of you are worrying about a relationship. Why they won't call me? Why he didn't text me back?
All right.
Okay, and our minds are just consumed in the spirit, and so sometimes I'm fascinated, Bishop, when I read the scriptures and I run across a line, and in that line I see a word like "do not," and then it's the very thing that I do. Yes. It's almost humorous. Do not worry, and yet I worry. And then you hear Jesus say, "Do not worry."
Yeah.
And then we turn around and we
Worry. Yeah.
And then we find the Apostle Paul saying to the church at Galatians, "Don't be weary in well doing." But look at your neighbor and say, "But I don't know what's wrong with me. I still worry sometimes." It is what it is. We find ourselves worrying about stuff. And it has to be something that is true about the youngest to the oldest person in this room. And so with that in mind, I think it's important for you and I to really look at this. When I was growing up in church not many years ago, I would hear the old saints sing a song during the testimony service. And the song went, "You can't hurry God. No, you just gotta wait." Y'all remember that song? You gotta trust Him and give Him time.
Right.
No matter how long it takes. And if you were Baptist, it went like this: He's a God that you can't hurry. And if you were Pentecostal, it went like this: He'll be there. Come on, somebody. He may not come when you want Him, but He's always on time. Two things within the lyrics of that song that bothers me. You can't hurry God. I don't like that. Because I've had experiences with God when I wish He wasn't so slow. Hello. Like, can you please hurry up? All right, let's get real up in here. How many of y'all just love the wait? Let me see your hand. You just love the wait. You can't help it. You just love the wait, no matter how long it takes. Let me see your hand. See, that's why I'm here, because ain't none of y'all saved. I know there's something wrong with y'all. But come on, that's for real. Don't nobody like waiting. Especially in the 21st century, who wants to wait? When do we want our stuff? Now. When do we want it? Now. Can I get a witness? When do we want it? Now. Don't be making me wait. I want something you're talking about, I'll get it tomorrow. Tomorrow? Do I look like tomorrow to you? I want it now. Don't nobody want to wait on nothing. So I got issues with this song. You can't hear me, God. And then, no, you just got to wait. You got to trust him and give him time. Look at somebody say, I ain't got no time. Come on, look at him and say, my life bill was due last week. I ain't got no time. Shoot, if I don't get the money, we're going to be in the dark. Then we're going to have to call the bishop so he can walk around and say, let there be light. Come on, somebody. Don't nobody got no time to be waiting. My stuff is 911. This is an emergency. Look at somebody and say, this is an emergency. And then the next part of it says, no, don't you worry, because he'll be there in a hurry. Don't you worry, he'll be there. Don't you worry. Hey, calm down. I can't help it. I feel like I'm wrong. And so every one of us are victimized by this. And yet, if you were to think about right now something that you have been worrying about, or perhaps something that you're worrying about right now, and how it is consuming you, how it is affecting you, how it is causing issues in your life, then you would recognize that it is one of the worst things to do. It is the luxury that you and I do not have, and yet, Bishop, we are prone to do it.
Yes, sir.
We're so prone. We will walk in faith one moment, we'll walk out of faith, and we walk into word. Many of us will come to the house of the Lord, and we'll hear the bishop and the elect lady preach a powerful word, and we'll build up in faith. We'll leave, go down those stairs, get in the car, and before we can crank the car up, we get hit by a spirit of worry. It's crazy. And it's real. And so when I see these emphatic commands in the scripture, I get concerned with them because we're told not to do them. And yet we are prone to do them. And it doesn't matter our title. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what you drive. It doesn't matter how much you pay for your hair. I mean, it just doesn't matter. You get hit by that spirit of worry, and it messes with you and it controls you. And so I want to challenge us in this morning, because you've been on a 19-year journey. And I'm thinking that Bishop and elect lady and this family may have seen some things, and when you look back over your history, you lift your hands and you say, thank you, Lord, because we could not have come this far except that you did it. Amen. And you begin to rejoice. Amen. But then, on the other hand, have you noticed you got two hands? On one hand, I give God thanks for what he's done. But on the other hand, somebody say, on that other hand, I start thinking about stuff that has not been done. That's right. And I start to climb back up again in that spirit of concern, frustration, and worry. And because it victimizes every one of us, I'm looking at people in here that are probably 5, 6, and I'm looking at people that are probably 40, 50, because it victimizes every one of us. We have got to get some sense of what to do about this. And I thought this morning, as we begin now to move into our future, into our expansion, that we've got to set in our minds that we're not going to worry. And I want to talk to you on 2 platforms this morning. One platform is how you're going to handle this in your personal life, and the other is how we're going to handle it as a kingdom family. And so this is very important. Now, here's some things I want to talk to you about this morning. I promise I'm not going to be here 6 hours. That was just a joke. But I've got to tattoo this on your spirit this morning. And nobody loves preaching like me, but I don't think this is that morning where you need somebody to preach your wig off. I think this is that morning where we got to figure out how do we get out of this thing. If every one of us were honest enough this morning in front of everybody to admit that we do worry, how do we get out of this? How do we get some victory over this? Somebody lift both hands and say, I've got to get some victory over this.
I gotta get some victory over this.
So how do we do that? And that's kind of sort of what I want to work with us on this morning as we begin to take our journey into the next 40 minutes or so. Now, here's the thing that I want to say to you first and foremost about worry. And I think you need to hear this in your spirit. Did you not know, and I think you do, that 85% of what you worry about never happens? Can I say that again? 85% of the stuff that you and I worry about never, ever happens. Look at somebody and say, that is a waste of your time.
A waste of your time.
Hello? You're going to spend 85% of your time worrying about something, and when you get through worrying about it, you done lost some hair, you done lost some teeth, you got wrinkles in your head that you didn't have before, and the next thing you know, you spent all that time worrying about it, and it still did not correct.
My God.
Amen.
That's right.
It still did not get fixed. What kind of sense does it make to waste that kind of time using that kind of mental and emotional energy and then don't get back? Look at your neighbor and say, stop wasting time.
Stop wasting time.
That is emotional and mental drain. To be worrying about something that much, and then when you get to the end, you still got the issue that you had before you started. I want you to think about this for a moment. Think about something in your life right now that you have wasted a lot of emotional and mental time on. And when you got through worrying about it, it was still the same.
Right.
The person still didn't talk to you.
My God.
Hello? It was still the same. You worried about it and you still did not, you worried and worried and worried and you still did not get all the money. You needed $1,000, you only got $750. And you did all that worry. It's a waste of time. So 85% of what you and I worry about never, ever comes to pass. Can you see why this is such a waste?
Amen.
Now, here's the other thing that you need to consider. What happens to the other 15%? Here's what we know. If 85% of what we worry about never comes to pass, then this is the other practical reality. The other 15% of what we do worry about that comes to pass, that literally happens, really never amounts to anything. And when it does come to pass, we worry about what came to pass.
My God.
Look at somebody and say, this is crazy.
This is crazy.
15% of what 85% of what I worry about never happens, and 15% of what does come to pass, I worry about that when it comes to pass. Here's what I discovered. I've discovered that I will pull on God in prayer and in fasting to do something. And then when he does it, I got to worry about what to do with what he's done. Look at somebody and say, this don't make no sense. So look at them asking, what you worrying about then? What you worrying about? Listen, I think about the many times I've talked to the Father, and I've asked the Father to do something for me, and he did it because he's gracious and he's good. And when he did it, I had to worry about what I was doing. I'll give you an example. I'll never forget, many years ago, I was praying to the Lord because there was a certain kind of car that I wanted. And I had been preaching in another nation, and there was a pastor here this morning that was sitting in your midst, and he was my number 2 for probably 17 years. When I lived in northeastern North Carolina, I always flew out of Virginia Beach. We didn't have an airport in Husky. So I had to fly out of Virginia Beach. And so I would always ride back and forth. And occasionally I'd stop by the Mercedes dealership on Virginia Beach Boulevard. And I'd check out the Mercedes there. And I never forget one day I was walking around and praying, Lord, I'd love to have one of these one day. And I start getting a vision for it. And I go out and start speaking in tongues. Doritos. This is gonna be mine. And just praying and believing God that He would go bless me with the Mercedes. And so one day I was flying back into the country, and I had been teaching and preaching, and it was hard work, and I was extremely exhausted. And that pastor that visited here this morning was the one who was responsible to get me from the airport back to a Husky. And at the time he was bivocational, so he was still working as a UPS guy. So he had just gotten off his truck, and he was ready to get home. And he lived in Virginia, so he had to drive me to North Carolina and then come back to Virginia after working hard on that UPS truck. And so he got me this day, Bishop, and he took me, put me in the car, put my luggage in the car, and we had our little pleasant talk about how things had gone on the meeting. And I'm noticing that he's driving me in a different direction. So I sit up and I say, where you going? And he said, don't worry about it. He said, everything's, it was an old word that they used back in the day. He said, everything is copacetic. I started asking the But he said, everything is copacetic. I said, no, it isn't. I said, because we're not headed to the hospital. I don't know where you're going, but I know this car. He said, Pastor, would you just relax? I said, sure. I said, but I'm ready to go, man. I said, I've been flying for 5 hours. I'm tired. And so I hope that where we're going is not going to take long. He said, it isn't. And so he's driving. The next thing I knew, because I had been up in this part of the state quite a bit, I realized he was getting ready to touch down on Virginia Beach Boulevard. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And next thing I know, I see him ride up into the Mercedes dealership. Hello. How many of y'all know I got delivered from tiredness right there? Just got delivered right on the spot. Just got totally, look at what I got totally delivered. You know, some people get partially delivered, others totally. I got totally delivered. And so he drives me up, bro. He drives me up on that dealership. And I said, what are we doing here? And he said, don't worry about it. So I get out the car and we walk around. He said, you like that one? I said, yeah, man, these cars are nice. I said, but I'm tired, man. I'm ready to go home. He says, okay. And, and after a while, this guy walks out. And he comes out of the dealership and he walks up and he's already met Pastor Hines. And he looks at Pastor Hines. He says, where's Pastor Boston? And Pastor Hines points at me. And then he says, no, I'm asking for the Father, not the Son. Because at that time, I was younger than I am now. See, I'm 29 now. Right. Why y'all laugh? I don't see nothing funny. So, you know, I was much younger. So he says, no, I'm not talking about the Son. I'm looking for the Father. And so you imagine a little short guy standing there, and he says, this is he. He says, this can't be him. He says, yes, this is he. He says, okay. So I introduce myself. He says, can you follow me, sir? And he takes me to the showroom.
Oh, boy.
And he says, would you sit in this car? I said, dude, come on now. He said, no, seriously, sit in it. And see, you don't play with people like that. Because I don't play with you like that. Don't play with me like that. So he says, get in the car. And so I sat in the car. This is going to be well over 19 years ago. I sat in the car, 17 years ago. I sat in the car, and when I sat in the car, I realized that it's not the C series. If you know anything about Mercedes, there's C, E, and S. C is small. E is middle. S is Superman. So I realized that I'm setting in a 500S. That's the top dollar. After that, you just go make back. So I'm sitting in this 500S, and because I'm so short, don't you say nothing with your big hand. What you looking at? You want to do something about it? When I said short, he looked at me like, well, when you do that again, I'm going to talk about your mama. Listen. Man, I sat in that car, and because I was so short, elect lady, all that you could see was my forehead. That's all right. So the salesman turns around and says, "You sure this is Pastor Boston? Or is this the son?" And Pastor Hines says, "I told you this is Pastor Boston." He says, "Okay, all right, if you say so." And he hands me the keys.
Oh, wow.
I said, "What are these for?" He said, "This is yours." I said, "Stop lying." He said, "No." He said, "For real, this is yours." I said, "This can't be mine. I didn't buy it." He said, "Sir, this car has been paid for." And I was tired, but how many of y'all know I felt strength come on me? Slap somebody and say, he felt strength come on me. Y'all know how tired I was. I looked at Pastor, I said, "You gotta be kidding." He said, "No." He said, "We just know that it's time for you to have this, and this is paid."
God.
And they gave me the keys, and as tired as I thought I was, I got in that car and drove a whole hour and 30 minutes to North Carolina. And I know they thought the car was moving by itself. But they couldn't see me. But I didn't care because I had me a 500S. And I drove that car God had blessed me, and I drove that car, bro, and I drove that car until 3 months when it was time for it to get serviced. And I brought it back up to Virginia Beach, and I drove it in for the regular routine service. And when I drove it in for the regular routine service, the lady came back out with the service bill. This was before they had these service plans attached to vehicles. So if you had a vehicle, you didn't have an automatic service plan with it. You had to do all the service separate from it. So there were no service plans attached to the car. They brought the bill back out. And when they brought the bill back out, now before this time, I was driving a Lincoln Continental, and the service on that was doable. But when they brought this bill out for oil change and a tire rotation, it was $700. I'm 29, I still remember. It was $729.45. And I looked at the lady and I said, "Who's this for?" And she says, "It's the bill for the service." I said, "What did you do?" She said, "We changed the oil and rotated the tires and topped off the fluids." I said, "And that cost $795." She said, "Yes." So now I started worrying about the very thing that was a blessing. I didn't have no $725. So sometimes you get blessed and you end up worrying about the very thing you got blessed for. Wow.
That is so good.
And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay for this. And you know, at the Mercedes dealership, they don't take food stamps. Hello. So I trying to figure out how am I going want to do this. And at this time, Melvin wasn't there. The Pastor Hines that had taken me there, he wasn't there. And, I didn't have no credit card, at least not one that could be used. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. This stuff maxed all out. Amen. So now I found myself in a situation, stay with me, where I'm worrying about something that was just 3 months ago, a breakthrough. Look at me. And an answer prayer. And now I'm worrying about it. And sometimes in our lives, if we're not careful, we'll take even a good thing that God's doing in our lives, and we'll work it until we work it down into a state of worry.
My God.
Some of you pray for kids. These are preaching my message. Some of you pray for children, and then when your child turned 2, that child went baby kid. And now you're like, oh my God, what in the world is going on? And then that child turned into a preteen. That is really not so cool. And oh Lord, don't let them get into that preteen and they meet a boy or meet a girl. Oh, Jesus. You see what I'm saying? If you're not careful, if we're not careful, we will take everything, that which is not so cool and so kind and so good, and things that are clearly a blessing from the Lord.
Yes.
And we'll turn it into a ratio. We're prone to do it. And it's why when you read this text in Galatians, you find that it is an emphatic command. Do not. If you were to read it in a literal setting, it would almost be as though someone is raising their voice at you. Do not. It's almost like a parent talking to a child. Did you hear what I said? Do not. When Jesus says it, do not worry.
Right.
Because what is the benefit of it? If I clothe the birds and if I take care of the lilies of the field, how much more will I not take care of you, my little ones? So for this reason, do not what? Do not worry.
Amen.
And the reason why we're not to do it is because it is a waste of time. I stood there, almost fell apart, and I still needed the $729.42 when I got through having that fit. It did not fix it.
Right.
And some of you right now, look at me, I'm talking to you prophetically. You have been caught in a zone for a day, for a week, for a month, some of you 2 months, some of you 6 months, some of you are in a mess that you've been caught up in for a year, and it's pulling you apart. You've taken what was negative and you've worked yourself silly about that. You've taken what was good and you've worked yourself silly about that. And nothing is changing. And God said, no, you don't do that. Because there's no benefit in it. So 85% of what you and I let ourselves get all emotionally and mentally worked up about, it does not happen. And the other 15%, we have got to be willing not to take that somewhere that it shouldn't go.
Amen.
Now let me give you 2 more reasons why you shouldn't worry, and then we're going to start wrapping this up. Here's a third one that. Well, I'll just give you 4. Here are 4 things I want to give you as to why you shouldn't worry. Here's the first one. When you worry, did you not know that it shrinks your brain mass? Now, I'm looking at some of y'all, and you can't afford that. You need all the brain you got. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, you can't afford that. I'm just saying. I'm looking at some of you and I'm saying, nah, they don't need to worry because they don't need nothing to shrink up here. If anything, they need to grow. Hello? Come on, look at your neighbor and say, because I know you. Because I worship with you. And you can't afford that.
Wow.
No, seriously. We are told medically that when we worry over a period of time, consistently and chronically, that it literally shrinks the brain over time.
Wow.
It dumbs you down. Look at me. How many of you have found that when you are in a state of worry, your thought patterns are scattered?
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
You can't seem to get no consistency to your thoughts. You be looking at something and can't even call it, and you know what it is because parents, have you been worried about stuff and the kid come in and you know your child's name. You can't even call him. Come here, boy. Or you call him one of the other kids' names.
Yes.
The spirit of worry will dumb you down.
My God.
Look at somebody saying, and I ain't having that up in here. It will mess with your mind.
Jesus.
And we already know that we only use approximately 15% of our brain power.
Right.
So we really don't have the luxury of having the intrusion of worry on top of that to take away and minimize what we're already operating in.
Yes.
And so at some point, you and I have got to decide that that's not going to be the case. Now, let's look at another. Not only does it shrink your brain mass, but here's another thing we know. It lowers your IQ. So your intelligent quotient goes down. Look at your neighbor and say, and you can't afford that.
And you can't afford that either.
My God.
You need all of the brain and you need all of the thinking power and capacity that you have.
Amen.
Yes.
And so what happens when you and I get to worrying, then we lose our ability to maintain a decent level of intelligence. Here's a third one. It predisposes you to disease and to sickness. Biologically, when you and I are chronic worriers, we open ourselves, look at me, to disease and sickness. We know now by case studies that ulcers in the stomach, look at me, migraine headaches that won't go away even after you've taken a migraine, etc. Fluctuation of weight, either up or down, high blood pressure, sugar diabetes, and the list goes on. When you and I open ourselves to the spirit of worry, we predispose ourselves to sickness and disease. I've prayed for many people. This is really going downhill now, what I'm about to say. I've prayed for many people for the last 40 years. And I know that's a problem because I said that I'm 29. Look at somebody and say, get out of his business. Get out of his business. I'm in the Word. This is a mystery. I know it is. Behold, I show you a mystery. I'm 29 and I've been preaching for 40 years. Look at somebody and say, it's just a mystery. That's a mystery. What? I can be 29 if I want to be. Right? Bible says, as a man thinks in his as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Scripture says, you call those things that be not as though they were. Amen. Look up here and point your hand at me and say, go 29, go 29. For 40 years, I prayed for people all around the world. I've laid hands on folks to pray that God would heal them of something that was going on physiologically in their bodies. And it wouldn't move. And I would ask God, why is this thing so stubborn? And then as I prophetically began to look closer into it and have conversation with them, I found out almost every time it was connected to chronic worry. Look at me. You can get so caught up in the spirit of worry that even when the power of God is applied to a situation, it won't move. Because you are so mentally and emotionally connected to it that the only thing that happens is that it's invited back. How many of you have been in a service, you felt the power of God and something happened in your body? And then you got back outside and you went back mental and that pain came right back. And you knew when the preacher laid hands on you that the thing went away. But you got to your car and you went straight back to where you were before, and bam, pain hit you in the heart, hit you in the side, hit you in the back. Some of the disease and some of the dis-ease and some of the uncomfort that you and I are wrestling with in our physical bodies is connected to worry. It's really important to this young generation because now studies show us that children between the ages of 8 and 17 have more frustration and worry in their life than old people.
Wow.
The millennial generation is so consumed by the spirit of worry that it's causing them to not function in life, in relationships, and in career.
That is so true.
So this is important. The kinds of sicknesses and diseases that people are being diagnosed with today at such a young age, at one time in recent history, we never saw those diseases in younger people. We saw them in old people. How many of y'all know what I'm talking about? It was our grandmothers and our grandfathers who walked around with these chronic diseases, and most of the time that was connected to simply to old age. And sometimes poor diet. But you never hear it in modern history, kids 17, 18, 19 years old already having heart disease, dying because of a stroke.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? The number of young people right now that are struggling, literally struggling with diabetes, childhood diabetes has risen. Not just because of diet, which is one of the reasons, but also because these young people have found themselves caught up in chronic worry. Do they like me? Will I be popular? Will I be accepted? Will somebody, will I get 1,000 likes on my post today? I don't like what they did on Instagram, and I gotta get that straightened out. And, it just goes on and on and on and on. Look at me. And it messes with you. It makes you sick. Look at somebody say, I ain't got time for that. Now let me give you one last one, and then I'm going to start wrapping this up. We're going to mess with it in scripture. I want to give you one last one. I've got quite a few here, but I just want to stop at these 4. Did you not know that, and this is one that ought to fix this for all of us. Look at me. Did you not know that when you worry, it messes with your looks?
Oh, wow.
Now look at somebody and say, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying you can't afford that. That's all. I ain't trying to say nothing about you. I'm just saying that you can't afford that. All right?
That's right.
Are y'all with me? Are you
Yes.
following me? When you and I worry, it literally changes our physiological features. See? Can I tell you a quick story?
Yes.
I was preaching in the island of Trinidad in the Caribbean back in 1997. I just left at the beginning of this year where we have been preaching in that island for over 20 years, and we brought many, many churches together. Had one of the greatest revivals in that nation just in May of this year. But in 1997, I was preaching in that nation, and one of the pastors came to me and he said to me, he says, you know what, we have a fellow brother and he's really struggling right now, he's hurting. And he asked if I thought you would take a few moments with him. And I said, well, certainly I will. I said, in fact, if you can set it up, I'll give him an entire hour. If he'll just be willing to come and meet me, it'd just be a whole lot more convenient because, you know, my ability to get around the island is not so cool right now. He said, sure. He says, we'll arrange it. He says, and there was a local market that had eatery in it, and I agreed that I would meet him in that market, and we just kind of break bread and talk, and I would listen to him for an hour. This was a pastor. He was great in trouble, and I was willing to hear him out. And so I'm a very punctual person, and so what'll happen is if we say 10 o'clock, I will be there at 10, and then of course if I can't do 10, then I'll call and say that can we move it. But 15 minutes after 10, if you don't call me, I will leave you. And so I told him, I said, now make sure he's there, and we can have a talk. So get to the mall and go to the eatery. It's 10:12, and I don't see the pastor. I know him because I had seen him 2 years before when I was there, so I knew his features. And I was trying to identify him. And I'm looking around for him, and I don't see him. So I get on the phone, I call the guy that set this up, and I said, he's not here. I said, so is everything okay? Do we need to add on some more time? I don't mind waiting, just let me know.
Right.
And he said, no, he's there. I said, no, he's not here. I said, because I've been all around and I don't see him. He says, yes, he is. He's there. He says, he's looking for you. I said, well, I don't see him. I said, where is he at? So he tells me where he's standing, and I look over, and there he is. Now, mind you, I've walked by this man like 4 or 5 times. And he was unrecognizable. So I go over to him and I say, are you Pastor so-and-so? He says, yeah. He said, there you go, how you doing, freak out. I said, how long have you been here? He said, oh, I've been here since 10 minutes to the hour. I was waiting on you because I know how you are, and I didn't want to miss the meeting. I said, well, I've been here ever since the top of the hour. And I said, I never saw you. He said, oh, I've been sitting here the whole time. I was just praying and reading through the scriptures. And I'm looking at it, and listen to me. I know him by name, but I don't know him by favor. So he gets to talking, and we talk for about 45 minutes, and at the end, I have this thing that when you ask me to talk with me, I will not interrupt you. You can talk for 45, 50 minutes. I'll just listen. Because do you not know that the number one desire of most people in the world is to be heard? Most people just want to be heard. They don't want you to talk to them. They don't want to be psychoanalyzed. They don't want to be counseled. They don't even want you to pray for them. If every one of you could just find somebody that would listen to you for an hour and not judge you, you would take it. Because you can get some things off your chest and be free. And so that's all I want to do. I just want to be listened to. At the end of the 45 minutes when he got through talking, he's like, well, I go up to him and I ask him. I just ask him, politely, what happened? He said, what are you talking about, Ray John? I said, what happened to you? I didn't recognize you. He said, preacher, the stuff that I've been through over the last 2 years has so messed with me, and I have worried myself so bad that it has changed everything. He was a man that when I knew him 2 years ago was just slightly above me in size, and just a little taller than I. And when I saw him that day, he was at least 400 pounds. All of his hair was gone. Teeth were missing out of his mouth. And he was in a physiological mess. Worry had worked his brother so much that it changed the very way he looked. So much so that he was not even recognizable. In every one of our lives, it works a different way. Some of you have worried so much that you cannot come out of the house without a pound of makeup. Because you got so many wrinkles and you gotta cover them up so people won't find out that you're worried. Some of you can't pay some of the bills that need to get paid because you gotta keep buying hair because yours is falling out because of worry. Some of you are worrying so much that your weight is going up and you can't control it. I have one friend, a pastor in Texas. He worried so much that he would go to McDonald's 3 times a day and buy 4 Big Macs every time. That was 12 Big Macs in one day. Got to the point he couldn't get in his car. Look at me. This is serious. Some of you are worrying so much that your weight is going down. Some of you are worrying so much that it's changing what you look like. And I don't think there's anything that's more important to us than our looks. We're probably the most vain generation that has ever lived.
Amen.
We stay in our phones all the time.
Amen.
Some of y'all, if y'all will open up y'all photos right now, y'all got more selfies of yourself than you got of anything. We love ourselves.
So true.
How is worrying messing with you? It's an interesting word in the Greek, and it has several connotations. And I want you to get this as we wrap this up. I'm getting ready to lay my hands on some of you. Because here's what I know. If you are the kingdom citizens of this church and your life is overwhelmed with worry, I'm not quite ready yet, sir. And your life is overwhelmed with worry, then you're not going to be much good to yourself, nonetheless, any good to this vision.
That's right.
When Paul uses this word, and very often the word translates, in fact, multiple ways, but perhaps the most common way that we find this word in the Greek is this way. Number one, there's 3 applications to it. Number one is to be distracted so that you can't focus. When you worry, it takes your focus. That's why, look at me, that's why when we worry, we all over the place.
Right.
I can wind up toward with no kind of sensory direction. How many of you have found that when you worry a lot, you lose your focus? You start putting your attention on what's not important. And you put your attention on what you think is urgent, only to find out that what is urgent wasn't important. Anybody with me?
Amen.
And you lose your focus. So when you look at this word in its basic setting, it means to literally be distracted so bad that you cannot even focus. Some of you are worrying so much that you get out to go somewhere and you be driving and realize you're on a whole different part of the city. You're trying to figure out how in the world I get over here. I was just trying to go to Food Line. And I'm down in Portsmouth. How did that happen? You lost your focus. The second connotation of this word in its basic sense, and this is one that got me, means to be divided in opposite directions. It's as if someone is pulling you here and then here. What you want? Let me go. What you want? Let me go. What you want? And you're being divided. Look at me. How many of you know that anything that's divided cannot work? The words of the scripture, things that are divided cannot stand. That includes you. That includes me. And so the urgency of what I'm saying to you is that we don't have the luxury or the affordability of worry. Here's the deal. It just costs too much. It does. And it's a price tag that we can't pay. So it means to be divided, to be pulled in opposite directions. Mr. Big Hair, can you come up here? What's his name?
Savion.
Savion. Sounds like bottled water. Savion. Bottled water. Bad, man. Everybody drink bottled water. You might want to start your brand of Savion.
Savion.
We need to build a bishop a church.
Yes. Go ahead.
What's your favorite part? Being ready, man, you can get your black man's wish. You know? What's your name, sir? Dante, come up. I just like the way you introduced me, man. Say it again. Say it again. What's your name? Kayla? Would you come up, sir, and stand in front of me? Would you hold this mic and just keep it right at my mouth for me, okay? If you hold it right, I'll give you $5, boy. Yeah! Now, and I'm serious, I'm gonna do that.
All right, Caleb.
You just got you a Happy Meal, bro. Would you take my arm, sir, my wrist? Just get me back here. Now, my goal in life, hold on a minute, brothers, because I don't want to break my buttons. Don't be jealous about myself. Hey, baby. Give me by the wrist. Now, my objective in life is to move forward with focus. But I'm caught up in worry about what's going on both sides. Remember the word applied in the Greek is it pulls you in opposite directions.
Right.
Now I'm going to try to go forth, but Zavion and Eric, not Eric, Don. Shoot, if Abraham could have his name changed, Don, you can have your name changed. Hey, Eric. Everybody, hey,
Eric got a time limit.
You got to get up out of here?
No.
Oh, okay.
No more Eric after today.
See, that's why I don't play with some people. Because they don't play. You know, you can't play with everybody. Now, I'm trying to move forward because that's my objective in life. But Dante and the waterman over here got me pulling on both sides. Y'all guys pull me as hard as you can. You won't break. Because if y'all break me, y'all want to fix me. We're going to get a Humpty Dumpty anointing up in here. And y'all going to put this brother back together again. Somebody shout, yeah! Come back, son. What's the problem? I'm being pulled in
Both directions.
opposite directions. And as a result, I cannot go forward. Thank you, guys. Y'all were good. I owe him $5 before I leave. That's what happens when you work. Can I ask you a question? If you're not moving forward, what are you doing? And nothing is happening. The ultimate goal of worry, and this is the last application of this word in the Greek, and I'll be done with it, is to get you and I to a point where literally, and this is why I hear the Lord talking to me now, where it literally tears us to pieces. You see, what worry does is it comes up in your life with the intentions of breaking you down, tearing you to pieces so that you're no longer functional, they're no longer good for anything. You can come and sit up in church and worship, but you toe all up in your mind, toe all up in your heart. You can go to work and you can't even get the work done on your job because you toe all the pieces. You can be at home and you're in your relationship with a marriage or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, and you toe all up. So now your relationship is toe all up. You see what I'm saying? It matriculates. Everything goes down. It just tears up. It works like Florence, who just came through. It just rips things apart. Now, do you understand this emphatic command? Don't do it. I want you to look at somebody and say, don't do it!
Don't do it.
Because at the end of the day, it's destructive. Now, the Apostle Paul says, be not weary in well doing, but in due season.
Yes.
For in due season, you shall reap if you don't lose heart. Would you lay your right hand on your heart right now, which is going to be symbolic of your spirit, and say to the devil, you can't have my spirit.
You can't have my spirit.
And you will not fill my spirit
You will not fill my spirit
with worration.
with worration.
I reject it.
I reject it.
I do not receive it.
I do not receive it.
I'm not going to worry about a thing.
I'm not going to worry about a thing.
Look at me, church. Everybody get your Bibles down. There are some things in our lives that we got to make a resolve about this year. We got to snatch it up, elect lady. And we got to decide that we've had enough of it. We got to get it. We got to throw it out.
Amen.
I'm done. There's nothing to do about that person. There's nothing to do about that child. There's nothing to do about that. You fill in the blank. But there is something I can do about me. I ain't worrying no more.
Amen.
Because I can't find one single way that it benefits me. Not one. Not one. Not one. It changes nothing. I hear the Holy Spirit talking to somebody this morning saying, you've got to make a decision that you're going to throw this nonsense out of your life. Because if my life is messed up, then I'm no good to the full progression of expansion that's coming. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, has not been revealed to our hearts the things that God has prepared for us because He loves us. And because we are called according to His purpose, but we can never actualize that purpose as long as we worry. Some of you young people in here, you got great purpose in your life, there's great destiny in your life. You will never get that worrying about what your friends think about you, worrying about what somebody said about you. Half of the stuff that happens on Instagram is just to keep stuff going. Why do you want to let that take you somewhere like that? Just forget it. Forget it. So this is the challenge this morning. And Bishop Grimes and elect lady have been around me for years, and they know I love to preach and have fun. So this morning I could have very much came in here and oh, Humpty Dumpty. Yes, he did. I said, Humpty sat on that wow. Wow. That ain't what you need. Some of you this morning got so much stuff on you that if you walk out of here with it, it's going to be the same old week it was before you came in here. Look at me. And this morning, you got to make a decision. Nothing. I refuse to come sit up in here for 2 hours and do my praise. You know, do all my worship and all my fellowship. Walk down them stairs, and Monday comes, and I'm being beat down by the same old stuff. This morning, in Jesus' name, you're going to give it up. For in due season, you shall reap if you don't faint, if you don't lose heart. Now here's the challenge. I could lay hands on every one of you this morning, but if you walk out of here with the worry, the brother just touched you, that's all. But if you make up in your mind this morning, I'm walking up out of here, and I may still be broke. I may not have a dime of a name, but I know one thing I got. I got my mind back. I got my emotions back. Somebody lay your hands on your head and say, I got my sanity back.
I got my sanity back.
By the way, while your hands is on your head, just say, I refuse to go crazy.
I refuse to go crazy.
And there is nothing wrong with me.
And there is nothing wrong with me.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
If you believe that, say amen.
Amen.
Now this is going to be tough, and it's going to look a little ridiculous. For some of you this morning, you've got to demonstrate by your actions what you've decided with your mouth.
Amen.
You've got to demonstrate with your actions what you have decided with your mouth. So what does that mean? It means that you got to take that stuff that's messing with you. Some of you is really personal. And I get that. I'm talking to people in this room that are battling, worrying over identity issues. I'm looking at you in the spirit.
All right.
You're trying to figure it out. Who am I?
Right.
Why do I feel this way? Why do these things come to my mind? Why do I have these desires? And it's beating you down. You got to fake the funk, because when you're in public, you got to look like ain't nothing wrong. You got to act like everything's okay. But then you got to deal with the real deal that internally you're torn to pieces. And what I'm saying to you about the power and permission of the Holy Spirit this morning is that the declaration of your words have got to line up with your actions. And we're going to show the devil that here at World Harvest, we mean business.
Amen.
Because we got years of expansion in front of us. And we're not going to try to go into that with the stuff we're carrying right now. It'd be too much. So I'm going to ask you to do something that's weird. And if you'll trust me with it, I won't hurt you. I'm going to ask you to take whatever it is. If it's on your heart, I want you to reach towards your heart and get it. If it's on your mind, I want you to reach towards your head and get it. And as you grab that stuff, I want you to go to the door. I want you to throw it out. I want you to get it out of your heart. If it's in your body, where it's causing pain, I want you to get it. If it's your mind, and talk to it. And say, today is the last day
Today is the last day.
that I'm going to put up with this foolishness in my life. And I want you, when you're ready, whenever you're ready, just go to the door. Some of y'all might want to go outside and throw it outside. Some of y'all might want to go to the bathroom and flush it. I don't care what you do. Just come back when you get through. But as you get that, whatever it is, just